Welcome to my apiary. It's almost 8:30 a.m. and look at how low the sun is here. Um, this is straight east here. So you see how low that sun is coming up in the east. Very low. And that's why, it comes up at 8 o'clock, 8 to 8:30, and it goes down again between 4 and 5 o'clock or so. And we've got, 28 days to go before winter solstice, which is when the days start getting longer. And just as a reference, the last few days around solstice, before and after, the length of the day changes by less than a minute per day. And that change gets more dramatic as you reach the equinox, which is halfway between winter solstice and summer solstice. So people look at equinox as the first day of spring. They look at winter solstice as the first day of winter. Well, we're a month away from winter. You think it's no, winter has arrived. So definitely the first day of winter has arrived before now. So I got my little truck here, and it's doing pretty good. Today is new tire day, and I'm very happy about that. And the reason I say it's doing pretty good is you look at it, it's in good shape. The back's kind of sitting in a hole, so it might look low, but it's not, because she's right full. There's 400 pounds of softener salt in there, and there's about 1,000 pounds of honey in there. So that needs to be unloaded. And then I need to throw my trailer tire in there and get off to town, get my new tires put on my truck, and hopefully a new trailer tire put on that rim too. They're pretty busy. If they don't have time to do the trailer tire today, that's okay. They can do that at their leisure. I'll pick it up because I'm not using that trailer with any great frequency in the winter. So got to get at unloading this truck. A lot of it goes in sea can. Some of it goes elsewhere. And yeah, this was the result of yesterday. Yesterday was in Winnipeg. Did some deliveries. I think I did 3 deliveries. My deliveries are getting really good. People, I don't know if it's just the season, but people are buying honey. They're buying a pail or 2 pails, or a pail and a few jars. There's a lot of gift giving season, and people are being generous. They're buying kilograms of honey for gifts, and so that really helps pay for the gas. Every trip to the city, to the city of Winnipeg, when I do a few deliveries, it's costing me $65, $75, $80 worth of gas. So I'm really making nothing on the honey that I'm selling when I go, but it is paying for the fuel in the tank. So there's that. It is a business expense. So there is that. And thankfully I can usually drop quite a few boxes of honey at a store when I go, and it's the stores, you might call the stores my bread and butter. The stores are the bread and butter. That's kind of where what the business relies on. The deliveries are customer service. The deliveries are PR. The deliveries are market penetration, if you want to think of it that way. Market share, all that kind of thing. You want to stay in the minds of the people so that when they think of honey, they think of you. So it's important to do what you can to stay in the minds of people. And home deliveries are one of those things. And honestly, I always give the option. People understand today the cost of that free delivery. And I always give them the option to leave a gratuity on the invoice. And yesterday I was very blessed with some generous customers. All three left generous gratuities for the delivery on the invoice. I'm very happy about that. Thank you so much. That helps in a remarkable way to keep my business afloat. Things get too bad, the business closes, and then you don't get to enjoy Manitoba's most delicious honey anymore. Anyway, so it's a beautiful morning out here. It's -6, I think, and there's almost no air movement at all. It's so quiet and so still. It's one of those mornings that you can't hear a sound. The highway is 1.5 miles away, and you can still hear a little bit of traffic there. But traffic on a highway it's 1.5 miles away with a lot of trees between me and that, you can imagine how quiet it is for me to hear that. But that's what I can hear. It's so quiet. Some days I come out, it's so quiet that, have you ever experienced so quiet it's deafening? It's so quiet that you think you've gone deaf, because your ears are normally used to just a little bit of background. And sometimes I come out here and there's nothing. There is absolutely nothing those times. And it's quite the experience. So, is a little cold. Hands are getting cold. I'm going to put this camera up and we can visit while I unload this truck. A little bit cool, so going to wear gloves. These are not lined gloves, so they're not going to keep my hands warm against the elements, but just keep my hands warm against the products that I'm handling. Not to mention steel doors. You're load and unload a truck. Try and find a broken hoe. I actually went and bought a brand new hoe for my other truck because it's so handy. I don't remember why I have a broken hoe, but it makes the perfect hook pulling things out of the truck. Because you can actually, at the front, you can actually snag these little guys with the hoe and lift them out. Set these up, you can carry 6. Seems I'm either carrying feed pails or honey pails. I typically don't care for liquid pails because in the case of a pail like this, I can feel it is squishy, but that's all I know. I can't see any granulation progress. I got these translucent pails, which that's nice. I can see that in there. And if I put them in here, they'll freeze. And as I mentioned earlier, that will kind of stop that granulation in its tracks. So then I can serve up liquid honey in a pail to the customer. There's a lot of them asking for liquid these days. I'm not sure what that is. I think it's a combination of things. I think there's a misunderstanding of what creamed honey is. I think the creamed word makes them think it's not pure. It's not just pure honey. Sometimes. I know sometimes people are cooking and baking and they like the creamed for being able to measure it out. Or liquid. They like the liquid for measuring. I've typically not offered liquid pails, but people keep asking for them, so I've had to get into that. And for that reason, I can't see the contents of that pail as far as granulation goes. Getting the customer what they want is very important. You know, there is such a thing as kind of steering a customer into, I don't know if it's what you want them to have, but sometimes it's, it comes down to that. But at the same time, you have to make sure the customer is happy with what they get. And sometimes you might have to talk to them for a while and say, well, why do you want liquid honey? Well, I don't want anything added to it. Well, there's nothing added to creamed honey and it doesn't drip off your spoon. Oh, try it out. And maybe they'll like it. To me, the creamed honey is the more natural honey, to be honest. Because everything that goes into the pail gets mixed into the creamed honey. The liquid honey, everything gets settled out. And any tiny particulates don't get into the pail or the jar as much. And I do know that in my process, there's a good amount of propolis granules actually make it into the containers because of just the way I extract and the way I strain the honey in the system. So I think that's a great benefit. People are always, wanting propolis for health reasons. Whether I believe that or not is immaterial. That's what customers want. So to me, having some propolis granules in there rounds it out as a raw honey, pure honey product, and also gives them that component that I think probably a lot of honey doesn't have in it. Okay, now the 5 kg. I label these kind of as I sell them. I do mark them on the bottom as to what's in them, meaning liquid or creamed. I know there's honey in them. There's a little heavy. That's almost 25 pounds in each hand. So, I've mentioned before, I'm not a winter fan. I just would rather it be warm. However, there's a few things I take advantage of. This, for one, I talk about wax moth. They die. And liquid honey, it'll freeze here and it'll be good till the end of winter. It won't granulate. This is a cooler. I stopped in Winnipeg at a grocery store and bought a few grocery items in the frozen section. And, they've been in the truck since yesterday noon-ish. But the temperatures have been below zero, so I expect that to be just fine. Summer is more difficult to buy frozen items in Winnipeg because sometimes, like it's a good hour drive home, and sometimes I don't come straight home. So a lot of times I can't go to the stores I want to go to and buy the things I want to buy just because it doesn't add up. Doesn't add up logistically. Okay, so that's it for here. And yeah, so that was kind of buried in the front. I didn't care to dig it out last night, so I just left it there. It'll be fine. Okay, so now I'm not working in the sun. And it's remarkably cooler. The boxes here are creamed honey. And I want to put them in a building, how do I say, a building that is not too warm and not too cold. Talk about too cold. Being out of the sun definitely makes a big difference. Out here is, in my opinion, too cold. And this is not how you make creamed honey. This is just my feeling and my opinion. And what that is is when you cream honey, it kind of turns hard. And you can see this pail is of creamed honey, and it's getting pretty hard, but I can still squeeze it. So that's not finished. It's not finished setting up, in my understanding of creamed honey. And I don't want it to sit a long time in below zero temperatures. See this beautiful creamed honey. Kind of, we're not in the sun, so it doesn't look very bright, but it's really nice. That's the first creamed honey of the new crop. Every year, because it's a wildflower honey, every year the honey is a little different. A little bit different shade. Some of it's like a jar of snow. You know, that is got a few big ones, but not very many. Jar of snow is a clover, a sweet clover. Sweet clover is extremely light color. I'm just marking these creamed since they have no labels yet. And then in a dry year, sweet clover particularly goes in a 2-year cycle. You'll have a good sweet clover crop every second year, the way it seeds itself out. And you'd think that would average out, because you do get some sweet clover in that off year. But it is remarkable how it actually is a 2-year cycle. And that gets complicated by the weather. If that second year, when the sweet clover is scheduled to be prolific, maybe the weather is not going to be as agreeable to sweet clover, so you won't get much. Some of these boxes have a hard time when they get handled so much. So I don't get a really heavy sweet clover flow as often as I'd like. But in a dry year, my honey will be quite rusty red. Still delicious. Sweet clover is very mild and light flavor. It's highly regarded. Sweet clover is highly regarded as a high quality honey. And in a dry year, alfalfa is predominant because it has a taproot that allows it to take advantage of the water deeper down in the ground. Some of these really got beat up. So in a dry year, I'm going to see more alfalfa than most everything else. So it's going to be a very different honey than a sweet clover. And that was very evident last year. The last 2 summers have been quite dry. So there's a couple of dynamics there. 2 summers dry. Last summer was very much the driest. How that plays out is 2 summers in a row it's very dry. Dry summer doesn't let the sweet clover proliferate. And then there's that 2-year cycle. So now you've guaranteed taken in one of the sweet clover years into that dry year. So regardless if it was a good year for sweet clover, like the 2-year cycle for sweet clover or not, you're not going to get sweet clover to any great degree. There's always some. Sweet clover is named sweet clover specifically because it's not clover. It's a legume. Boy, some of these are really get bashed up. So I feel it's important when you're talking about sweet clover to actually say sweet clover. It's not just clover. You can't just say, well, it's clover. It's not, because it's not clover. There's a lot of plants like that. Like a Douglas fir tree. It's not a fir tree. So you have to call it a Douglas fir. I'm not a botanist or an arborist. If you are, you can set me straight on that. But that is my understanding. This 4x4 truck's pretty tall. Makes it harder to reach over the edge. Oh, I was saying about the storage of the creamed honey. My understanding is that the optimal temperature to let creamed honey set properly is about 15 C. Now, I don't think that's a hard number. I don't think that's a, 14 is going to ruin it kind of a number. I don't think 20 would ruin it. I think 15 probably does a good, reliable job in a timely manner, really. Because I've seen it set up at a variety of temperatures. I had some, though, that sat in a warmer environment, and it absolutely did not set up properly. It had to be redone. And that's a very expensive and very labor-intensive situation for everyone involved. Because I could mark them on there and be a little quicker. Always look for efficiencies, This beats up the boxes. The whole hook makes a little hole in the box. But a little hole or two doesn't matter too much. I hope I can lift this with my tractor when I'm done here. I can lift a lot, just a little to move it, but I may not be able to lift it very high. So now, I can just do this. Okay, rack in the box. Guess it's not too bad for cold on the hands. I didn't even realize I was not wearing those gloves. Cardboard is pretty easy to handle. It doesn't, it's not dense, it doesn't hold heat, it doesn't suck the heat out of your hands real fast. Handling metal things or something, that's a different story. Oh, this is going to cube out real nice. Satisfies my chi when things cube out nice on a pallet. If I could just turn that chi into some income. Don't look like ours. Okay. Now, for my next trick, we can use this hook. I love this brand of softener salt. It has the plastic handles. When I put them in the truck, I'm careful to put the handles pointing this way, because I'm going to set them on this pallet right here. These are 18.1 kilograms each. And here's your metric lesson for the day. 18.1 kilograms. It's kind of a weird number, isn't it? Why would you choose that number? That leads me to believe that it works out to be something like a round figure in an imperial measure. Like my sugar bags are 20 kilograms. That kind of makes sense, 20 kilograms. But that's Rogers, that's a Canadian company. This Windsor, I think, probably an American company. So, what does that work out to? Well, there's just over 2.2 pounds in a kg. 2.204 something. So what you can do, if we start with 18, we'll just forget the 0.1. We'll remember that we're going to be short, but we'll forget the 0.1 for a rough figure. 18. Well, 2.2. 2 is easy, right? 2 18s is what, 36? Okay. And 0.2 is, double it and take 10%. So 36 plus 3.6, which is almost 40. So these are likely 40-pound bags. Those 20 kg sugar bags would be 44 pounds. Tiny bit over 44. Sugar bag that size in the Americas, in the States, would then be a 50-pound bag. I used to truck that out of Crookston, Minnesota, back in the day, and in those days, coming out of Crookston, of course, that was a 50-pound bag. But now it comes out of Canada, so it's a 20 kg bag. Some people maybe don't live in a rural setting. They don't understand what this salt thing is all about. It's just pure salt. There's nothing else. It's just put in little pellets. Most times it's sea salt. It's pretty interesting how they harvest it. It takes a long time, but it's pretty easy. They have these really big plateaus. I think there's a great big one in Mexico. A really big plateau at the ocean. And they either use dikes or pumps or something. They flood this huge plateau, and it may be thousands of acres with seawater. And then because it's hot in Mexico, and then that they just leave it sit and it evaporates, and they use big machines and they push it up. And I think they probably do it a number of times and let it evaporate. And then they use the big machines and they push it up in piles. They push the resulting mineral, and salt is by far the greatest mineral, but not the only one in seawater. People want to put sea salt in their food, and I don't know what that's all about, other than just buzzwords. But salt is not the only thing in the ocean. There's like whale poop in there too, and all kinds of other stuff, and some toxins too. So I don't know about that. But regardless, that's kind of how they make it, and then they'll purify it from there because it's going to have impurities in it and sand and stuff. And they press it into pellets, but they just press it. There's no binder; it just pressed into pellets. And so we use it in a water softener. Well, the salt doesn't soften the water. There's a resin bead. There's a bunch of resin beads in that. This water softener is a tall thing, and the water goes in and it percolates up through these beads. And it's the beads that are ionized, and they attract the contaminants in the water. I say contaminants, generally, iron and other stuff. I mean, it's not going to sanitize water if you've got non-potable water. It's not going to take E. coli and stuff like that. It just takes basically mineral out of the water, which is what you get in a rural setting, and you have a well, you're going to get mineral. So most rural houses will have a softener. If they don't, then you're going to see a lot of staining in the water receptacles, the sinks, the toilets, stuff like that. It doesn't really hurt you. You can drink it, but regardless. So it's these beads that take the mineral out of the water, but they can only attract so much mineral, and then they need to be cleaned. So every so often, on schedule, the water softener. When I was a kid, my mother used to do this regularly. She would soften the water. She wasn't softening the water. She was cleaning the water softener, and she would have to do it manually. But today, it's all automated. My softener is set up so that the people who put it in tested my water. They said, okay, you have this mineral content, therefore your water softener has to be this size, and it can soften this many gallons of water. Yes, it's calibrated in gallons, and then it will trip, and it'll clean, it'll cycle overnight. Regen, they call it, regenerate. So it takes care of itself, other than me having to fill the salt container with bags of salt, and it'll hold what will it hold, 5 or 6 of these, something like that, at a time. And so then what happens is it'll regen, and you set it to go in the middle of the night. It scares the crap out of the cats because it's kind of noisy. It's a hissing sound. And so it goes at 3 o'clock in the morning, periodically. And the system fills the vessel with water, lets it sit a while to dissolve some of the salt, pumps the salt in through the beads, and it's the salt that cleans the beads, and it just jettisons that water out the septic system. And yeah, so that's about it. So really, all I need to do on a daily basis, it's not daily, it's once a month or so, or not even that often, is refill the tank with salt. And I'll go through about a bag a month, honestly. I buy 10 to 15 bags a year, so maybe a little more than a bag a month, depending on how much water I use. I've been using a lot of water in the honey house, and that softener has been softening the water for the honey house. In the summer, if we're using a lot of water for anything else, we don't water plants and things with it because there always is actually a salt residue in the water. If you have severe hypertension or something, they tell you don't drink that water. So that's about it. That's what happens there. So this is part of my as part of my duties as the household, the owner of the household, and the guy who lifts heavy things around the house. I'm glad to do it for my wife. She does so much for me, and I'm glad to have a few things I can do for her. There's a truck with nothing in it. Well, nearly nothing in it. It's good English, isn't it? Okay, so what I need to do, there's a tire over here. I'm going to put my gloves on for this because it's got an aluminum rim, and there's something that'll make your hands cold. Not only metal, but aluminum. That'll make your hands cold. That's really heavy. I put it on that pallet so I could use the tractor, but okay, so that's that. Now pick that up with the tractor, move it into the building. I'm gonna put it in this building because it's about 15C in there, so we're right bang on. The salt can sit outside, honestly. It's in a fairly weatherproof bag, and that's handy just to carry it into the house from there. So both those things are tractor jobs. I'll get the truck out of the way. I gotta take my groceries in the house. I really need to move these 2x4s. If you build anything like this, and build it with a wide enough opening to set a pallet in there. Let that be a lesson to you. The less you have to handle something like this, the better for everybody involved. I'll be using up almost half of this right away. The tank has been empty. Be careful of pulling the corner. If you pull the top corner, it'll open because it's a pre-perforated corner. That's how you open the bag. Okay, get this guy out of here. While I'm sharing some of the duties of rural life, this truck covers a lot of those things right now. So I'm heading out just on a little errand. It's not very far away. I'm going to town, going to a little village I live near. It's only 3 miles away. There's a guy who wants to buy some honey. Those softener bags, you think, well, what happens to the bags after I dump the salt out? Those are nice bags. They're very thick and robust, and I save them for various projects. And one of them is the litter box. Clean the litter box out, and I just take that back in the hayfield and dump it out. It's good fertilizer. So the real crux to the issue is, well, while I'm in town in the little village, I'll get the mail, and I have some letters to mail there too. We are blessed to have a little post office. It's a full service post office. It's not open very many hours during the day is all. So you got to catch them while they're there. And then the garbage, I have to go to the dump. Again, that's, I don't know, 5 or 7 miles away. And so I got the garbage, got the recycling, and then later on I go to town, I got the water. So we actually buy our water, our drinking water, from a place in town. It has, like, it's distilled water, so it's very nice to drink. I can drink the well water, the softened well water, just fine. I like this better, it's cleaner. And my wife has to drink very, very clean water. She's got a very sensitive stomach. Okay, so town, village, town, and city. Okay, you hear me talk about go to Winnipeg, that's the city. Go to town is Selkirk, Manitoba, and village, I live near Lebo, Manitoba. So I'm gonna do this, and can't film while I drive, so that's all I'm gonna say about that. The bee barn fan is going crazy. It's on high speed because it's, I think, 3 degrees out here. The sun is kind of going down. I can hear the water dripping off the roof, so I know it's warm out here. Since the sun is not causing any melting, the kitty's here making sure there's no mice around. So it's nice, and the cats can get out. They kind of don't like winter. We get along that way. We don't agree that winter is the best season, but they're pretty tough that way. So you've seen me show you the sun up here straight south, and this is about where I was standing when I did that. And it's about 4:30 right now. And so I get my face out of it. You see where that sun is? It's not far off south. This is south right here. And so it's not very far west, and it's going down. It's 4:30 in the afternoon. So that's how short the days are here in the winter. Very long days in the summer, make up for it. Tire shop decided not to do the tire the same day as the tires on the truck, so that little project there is going to be waiting for another day. That's okay, it's not hurting anything. I did get the brand new tires on the truck though. They look great, and they have really nice traction. And moreover than that, they're new. The other tires are getting kind of old. That was the biggest problem with them. They were getting worn down, but they certainly weren't, worn beyond service. But they were a little, they weren't dangerous, but, always wanting for a little bit better traction in the snow. So got the new tires. I got BF Goodrich Radial TA All-Terrain KO2 tires. So that's what I got. They're exactly the tire, a little different size, but exactly the tire that I have on my 1-ton truck, and exactly in every way, including load rating. So they're what an old timer like me might call a 10-ply tire. They're rated by letter these days. They're a load rated E tire. They'll take 80 psi. Put that in kind of perspective. The 1-ton truck here. The 1-ton truck, let's see, this way. The 1-ton truck here specs out a D rated tire, which is not as heavy a tire as an E tire. It's just that it's not a very common load rate. So you always just put E tires on it anyway. So having an E tire on a 1/2 ton, yeah, that's a nice heavy duty tire. So it can haul whatever loads I want to haul in there, up to the safe capacity of the truck itself. And I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching the videos. I so much appreciate it. Send me a comment. I love the comments. I try to reply to each and every one. Sometimes if there's not a question or something, I don't know what to say. It's kind of, I enjoy reading them, and then it's give you a thumbs up, and that's about it. But I do anyway. By the sound of it, I have to go and let somebody in here because she's hollering at me to come and let her in. So I don't know. She's funny that way. She'd rather make me go and let her in than actually just go and use her door, which she's been using for the last 10 years. Oh well. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Have fun. Yes, let's go in then. I'm cold too.